Hey everybody, it's Zazu Cioce here with your Movement Minute. And so today we are going to talk about hip extension. So, especially with the situation that we are currently in now, we are kind of locked in our homes or working from home. We're getting in a lot more sitting or hip flexion type of positions than we would normally be getting for most of us. And so that means that we are not taking our bodies through the natural ranges of motion through hip extension that we would normally be getting. So even if you find yourself standing a little bit more now, which is still good, it's upright exercise, that is still more of a neutral hip position and not really working into hip extension. So hip extension is not only important for hip health, but it's actually important for low back health as well. So I'm going to bring you basically just 3 quick exercises that will be really easy to interject throughout your day, a minute or so, with working on each one, or even less depending on what time you've got. Really, anything is better than nothing, but working on this is important at all times, but especially during this time because we are just getting so much more hip flexion or sitting type of positions with our body during this quarantine time. So we've got to do something to fight that. Just like we're trying to stay active to fight, the effects of inactivity, the same thing matters for natural ranges of motion that your body needs to be going through so that when we get out of this, your body is kind of more prepared to start to get back to your normal everyday life and your everyday positions and ranges of motion. So the 3 exercises that I'm going to bring you, again, are going to be specific for trying to improve hip extension. The way that we're going to try to do that today through these exercises is going to be to actually load the hip extension range of motion that you've got by contracting the glutes when you're in that position. So I'm going to bring you 3 exercises. Again, these are easy to do. You can do them, all sorts of different ways, but especially if this is just something great to do, interjecting throughout your day when you're, having a break, and easy to do around the house or pretty much anywhere. So we're going to bring you those 3 exercises and we'll go from there. Okay, so for the first exercise, what we're going to do is we are going to set up in a split stance. So I want you to make sure that both feet are facing forward and that you're not getting kind of like a turning out of the hip or of the foot on either foot. Okay, so you want the hips both facing forward, and you want to really make sure that the knee is back behind the hip. So once you do that and you're set up, everything is facing forward, you're not turning out or in, everything is in alignment in the sense of that your foot, knee, and hip are pretty much in a straight line as well. What I want you to do is I want you to make sure that your rib cage is stacked over your pelvis. So you're not, crunching down, but you're also not up here kind of leaning back, especially as you start to activate through the glute muscle. So what you're going to do, make sure that, again, your rib cage is stacked over the pelvis. You're not kind of bending too far back or too far forward, okay? And it's okay if you have a small bend in the back knee. I don't want it locked all the way out, but I also don't want you down here into a lunge either, okay? So a little bit of bend, it's okay if this back heel is up a little bit. What we're gonna do is we are going to actually lift the front heel up so that we are activating through this anterior chain of muscles, really helping to lock in the muscles through the pelvis and then engage through the core. And then what I'm going to have you do then is I'm going to have you really squeeze through your glute. So as you squeeze through your glute in this position, you are going to feel definitely some kind of tension through the front part because we're kind of pulling ourselves into hip extension by activating that glute. So once you're there and you've got all the pieces turned on, I want you to take nice big deep breaths when you're in this position. This is not only good for kind of loading hip extension through that glute activation and in this position, it's actually also really good for balance and working your feet, your calves, lots of different things, but it's really great for loading through hip extension. All right, so what you do to one side, do it to the other. This is, again, making sure the feet and the pelvis are pointing forward. You're not getting any turning out ribs are stacked over the pelvis, and then you are going to make sure back knee has a little bit of a bend in it, not all the way out, but just a little bit of a bend. Okay, lift that heel of the front leg. That's activating through that anterior chain, really kind of locking in the pelvis, activating through the core. Then you're gonna really squeeze through the glute, feeling it through the front there too. And then from here, you're gonna take nice, big, deep breaths. So making sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. Again, sending the messages to our brain and to our body that this position is safe, it's okay, and that it is something that you are in control of, and really training the neurological system as well as the muscular system and loading through hip extension, which is our primary goal for that one. All right, so the next exercise is going to be down on our knees in half kneeling. So we are going to kind of similar concepts as far as alignment goes. I want the ankle, the knee, and the hip to be in a straight line. Same deal in the back. I want the toes, pointing forward, or if you've got them in the back, you can't see mine, but they can either be flat, pointing straight behind you, or they can be toes curled underneath you, but again, still pointing forward. You're not kind of in or out. Okay, so then from there, make sure that your ribs are stacked on top of your pelvis. You can actually even lean forward a little bit on this one and actually put your arm on top of the bottom knee. For the starting position, what you're gonna do is you don't have to really focus on getting this back knee back behind you like we just did with the first exercise, because you're actually gonna move into extension while contracting your glute. All right, so now that we've got the position, we're here, and then I want you to again turn on this glute. So when you turn it on, you should feel like this front part is getting stretched. It's almost like, again, you're getting pulled into hip extension from the glute activation right here. So then when you've got that glute activation, it's on, you feel that kind of pre-stretch through here. Now you're gonna move forward till basically, you feel like you can't move forward anymore. And so that would be kind of your range of motion limit. And once you get to that limit, that's where the work starts, all right? So again, you can do this, 5 deep breaths in and deep breaths out, making sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. You could work 20 to 30 seconds in this position. Again, just deep breathing and really telling your body, hey, this is something I need to work on, and this is a position that I need to own, and, this is the way to do it. So again, kind of come back through here and get back to resting position. So what you do to one side, you've got to do to the other. So again, just kind of setting it up. You can kind of start in a kneeling position, and you can see my feet a little bit back here, so you can keep them straight like this, or curl the toes under. Just make sure, again, that everything's in a good alignment. I tend to prefer just kind of leaving them neutral. For these at least. So then you want the knee and the hip, again, ankle to be in a line. Same deal for the front leg. All right, so ribs aligned over the pelvis. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn on your glutes. So as you turn them on, you're squeezing your glutes. You should feel a little pre-stretch through here. All right, you feel that pre-stretch. So now we're gonna lean forward till you get to where it doesn't really want to move anymore. That's your restricted range of motion. So again, that's where the work starts. Take nice deep breaths in. Make sure that your exhales are longer than your inhales. You can do this again, 5 breaths, or you could do a 20-30 second hold of the position while breathing. You can work it in, whatever way you can work it in during your breaks throughout the day, just to work in some of that hip extension. All right. So finally, we are going to do a standing hip extension exercise that is also good, for balance. You're also going to work the standing leg as well as the back leg, or the hip extension leg. And you can vary this one again to make it easier or harder. I'll show you once we get into it. Okay, so I am going to, you can use a bed. I just happen to be in the bedroom, so that's what I'm going to use. This is a little high, probably just for my height, but it might be okay for most of you, but we're gonna do it anyways. You know, you make it work, whatever you've got, and you know, whatever stature you are. So I'm gonna put one leg back behind on top of the bed. Okay, so you can also do this, you know, with the couch on, you know, on the edge, on the arm rest of the couch, anything that's pretty stable, all right? If you have a bench at home, you could do it off of a bench. So you set up kind of similar, very similar to just like a single leg squat, all right? But what you're gonna do now is, again, make sure that, you know, the foot, knee, and hip are pretty well aligned on the standing side, and that your ribs are over your pelvis, and that you're not, again, flaring out or too far forward when you're doing this, so that your ribs are stacked in good alignment. All right, so next thing you're gonna do is you are going to try to break the bed or break the bench, break whatever's underneath this leg here, and you're gonna push down as much as you can. So when you're pushing down, you're also activating through your glutes here. So you can stay here in a more, you know, moderate or middle level, easier position, or you can make it harder by really engaging this bottom leg and coming down to this position. As you come down, you are going to get more of a stretch through the hip flexors, so working into hip extension. So again, when you get to the point where you can kind of feel it through here, you're engaging through the glutes, this leg is firing, that's where the work begins. You can take 5 deep breaths, make sure your exhale is longer than your inhale, or you can work in, you know, 20 to 30 second rounds and then kind of come out. So same deal on the other side. So those are going to be the 3 exercises that are going to really load the hip extension range of motion that most of us are lacking throughout the day because of the situation that we're in right now. So we want to make sure that when we get out of this, you know, we are primed and ready to, you know, return back to our normal functions, to our everyday lives, get back into the gym and get after it. And the way to do that is to really make sure and put in the work, put in the mobility work and, you know, conditioning work while you're here. Make the best out of the situation so that you can decrease your risk for injuries when you get back. And also just kind of hit the ground running and feel good about, you know, what you're doing every day. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any comments, please feel free to reach out. Let's go get it.